here after the Jackrabbits defeat Butler in their home opener, season opener, 55-14. We'll start right there. Maybe some broad thoughts. What do you take away from this ball game?
Well, simply the Jacks just out-executed Butler. I think the quick start with Zenner going 2 plays for a touchdown really sparked everything on offense, and just kind of from there, it just seems like they just really ran away with it.
Yeah, it really seemed like it was just a replay of what we had seen at the end of last year, save for the North Dakota State games, where they ran at will against a lot of their opponents. And it didn't end up being that way. After that, then it was neutralized somewhat. But they were able to pass the ball pretty easily against a not too great secondary. And when you look at Butler, non-scholarship team, tonight that was the difference. 55-14, a bunch of scholarship players, a bunch of guys who aren't on scholarship. And that puts Butler at a little bit of a disadvantage for sure. What about that passing attack? You had Jason Schneider go for 167 yards, career night for him, 2 touchdowns. Maybe he's their number one. It was hard to kind of estimate who would have been the number one coming in tonight. He looked good. Really got himself open. What did you take away from his performance?
Well, I think Hubert did pretty good. Brandon got a touchdown pass in there. I just think that this new look wide receiving core stepped up tonight, just like we were talking about couple days ago. So
right.
I think the wide receivers will have something to bring to the table this year to complement Zach Zenner. Reggie Gandy also had a pretty decent night tonight. Some really hard runs. So I think the future's looking really bright this season.
Look at this team, and I think to close out the passing point, sometimes it's good not to have a number one. Teams don't have a guy really key on. Look at 2 years ago, the Jacks had 2 number ones, Aaron Raw and Dale Moss. Last year, I think Raw was sort of held back because teams knew he was the best receiver. They were sort of gearing up on him. So very interesting. The defense had a good night. After the long touchdown drive that tied the game at 7, then we go 34 points for the Jacks, where and then it's over. You look at they really did separate themselves at that point. I think we'd be remiss here not to mention North Dakota State beat Kansas State last night. The big story really from this weekend is FCS victories over FBS teams. You had Eastern Washington beat Oregon State tonight. I think that's the story from week 1 in college football. Maybe what happens in Clemson, Georgia, but we're not done with that. So as far as these FCS teams being able to beat FBS teams, what do you sort of think about that? North Dakota State has done it year in and year out now, but I think it's a good sign for a lot of these teams. It may not be a good sign for North Dakota State being able to schedule some of these teams, but it is a big part of FCS and being able to get these opponents scheduled.
I agree.
He agrees. That's good.
I agree.
I hope you enjoyed the light show behind us with the lightning. I was wondering how close it would have to be for him to call the game, but it never really was threatening. Did the fireworks show? Harned was a big fan of that. How about the skunk? Did the skunk?
Yeah, the skunk in the booth up there in the press box.
It sounded like the whole stadium got that though, so not just us.
The smell's still in my nose.
That's a good sign. Hey, next week we're on the road, heading to North Dakota. We'll be in Grand Forks at the Alerus Center as these Jackrabbits take on North Dakota. That game at 6 o'clock, and our crew will be there. So until then, we will see you. From Marcus, he's Justin.